Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when and where you are, and welcome to another session of the Festival in a Box 3.0. It might be your first session. I'm kind of doubting it because this is a big smoky whiskey we're going to be tasting today. I'm delighted to say that we have the good friend Robert Ransom, the founder of Angel's Nectar, with us today, and he's going to take us through the tasting of the liquid itself, but also fill you in on what Angel's Nectar is and how it came to be. So I'm just going to bring Robert in now. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hello, Eddie. How are you doing?
I'm pretty well, actually. Pretty well. Well, to be transparent, it's Monday morning, and I'm actually feeling a tickety boo.
Good stuff. Nice sunny day up here.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's not sunny up here in York, but it's at least over 10 degrees, which is a bit of a win in this in December, right?
Yes. That is warm, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, listen, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk us through the Angel's Nectar Islay Rioja Cask edition.
Not a problem.
First of all, perhaps Robert, you could introduce yourself and what it is you do with Angel's Nectar and how it came to be.
Sure. I mean, I think we first met in 2004 when you were doing a whiskey festival in York. In the old days, I just started at Glenfarclas then. I think it was 2004 because I know I missed the following year because it clashed to my dad's 70th birthday. So that's how I've come to the year of 2004.
That's a long time. That's a long time ago, Robert.
A little while ago, yes. So I spent 10 years with Glenfarclas and loved every minute of it. Could have spent the rest of my working life there, but I'd always had an inkling to do my own thing. So in 2014, I took the leap and set up my own business with Angel's Nectar Whisky. And so that's where I am. What I've been doing since then. Alongside Angel's Nectar, we are also an importer. We import whiskey and gin and rum. But it was in 2014 we started with Angel's Nectar. Our first bottling was a blended malt, and we've done a couple of blended malts and a couple of single malts since then. And the idea is, well, we've taken the concept from the Angel Share, which everyone knows and loves. I had noticed, if you like, going back a bit to the history of the brand, from doing tours and tastings around the world, I noticed that when you talk about the Angel Share, it just brings a smile to everyone's face. And it was strange that there wasn't a whiskey brand out there at the time themed entirely around the Angel Share. And then in 2009, there'd been the changes to the regulations, which had finally legally defined blended malt. So for a couple of years after that, we had various new, more quirky brands coming onto the market, and I thought the two could be brought together. And if you imagine sort of Angels moving from one distillery to another, looking for the best casks you can find, it seemed to me that there was an opportunity for a brand themed around the Angel Share that was about blended malt. So that's where we started in 2014. And the concept would be that we would celebrate inconsistency with a series of small batch releases. And so the one we got to taste today is the Angel's Nectar Islay Rioja Cask edition, which is here. There we go.
Lovely. Got one at the ready.
At the ready. Okay. Yeah. Is it time to crack open? Do you think? Or...
I think we could do that.
Right.
So, as you're saying, the original concept for Angel's Nectar was surrounding more the blending malts rather than single malts, but this edition is a single malt, I notice.
We started with blended malt, but if you like, the idea was always that it would be showcasing different styles of Scotch whisky over time.
Right.
We would celebrate inconsistency, if you like, with variety. If you like, almost the idea of single casks taken to a more sort of approachable price point, if you like. So,
Oh, it's a wonderful color. I mean, the first thing you notice about it is it's almost rosé in color, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, Highland Rosé, I've been describing it as.
And do you like to talk about the distillery that it's come from, or is that something you like to shroud in secrecy?
The angels never reveal their sources.
Fair enough.
The reason for that is it opens up more lines of supply for us if we keep the name of the distillery confidential. So we haven't released the name of the distilleries of any of our bottlings apart from one, which was a single cask we did for an export market, and in that case we're allowed to. So
right, fair enough. Well, I mean, to be honest, you're not the only one in that camp, and I'm not against that at all, because it kind of brings even more intrigue into the tasting of it, because you know, as a whiskey fan, people will be tasting it, trying to figure out what it is apart from anything else. But the main thing is to enjoy it. I see it's bottled at 46%, so I assume non-chill filtered and all that.
Exactly, non-chill filtered, and that color is natural. All our bottlings have been natural color.
Brilliant. And would you recommend tasting without water to begin with, and then adding
Personally,
a bit of water?
I prefer to have my water in a separate glass and keep it there.
Yes.
So do try first of all without any water. I mean, to be honest, I'm just enjoying the nose for the time being. I think it's lovely and fruity. I described it as hints of homemade blackcurrant jam on the label. But you know, flavors are very personal things, so it's up to you to describe it your way. But that's what I wrote on the label.
So you do your own tasting notes?
Oh yes, the tasting notes are my own.
Brilliant. I suspect you're like me. You design the T-shirt, make the T-shirt, sing the theme tune, and so on.
Yes, yes. We're a very small business. Yeah, I mean, I think when I saw you at a whiskey festival recently, I'd called in my sister-in-law to help pour. So, but it was her homemade blackcurrant jam that I was referring to on the back of the label. So it was quite a nice touch that she was there actually pouring the whiskey.
Brilliant. Yeah, so it is quite fruity, aside from, you know, the obvious smoky tones that you're going to get in there. I'll give it a try.
So this is a sequel to our previous Islay edition. So they were both about 2,900 bottles. So we were looking to replicate or do a successor to that bottling when we and it's actually, there's a strange little twist here. So by chance we were offered a parcel of Rioja casks and just sort of just grabbed them after tasting it. And the idea for the bottle had been to replicate the bottle design, but with the angel in the metallic red. But with one thing and another, it was just taking too long. So we ended up bottling it in clear glass, which has been fortuitous because it shows off the lovely color. Whilst we would have hidden it if we'd done what I had originally intended. So serendipity.
Yes, absolutely.
In this game of serendipity.
Yeah. Well, it's a very full flavored whiskey, isn't it? I mean, obviously the smoke is going to see to that to a degree, but there's a real big rounded fruitiness about it. It really coats your palate nicely.
Yes, it's a lovely jam of sweet fruit and smoke. I mean, it's almost more approachable than our previous Islay edition with that extra sweetness and fruitiness. Yeah, I don't think that needs any water personally, but obviously it's up to the individual.
No, absolutely. I just for the sake of argument, I'm going to add a little bit to it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. And for those watching who are unsure whether to add water or not, best thing if you can is to put a bit in 2 glasses and then add water to one of those and then compare them.
Oh, that's a great tip. Yeah.
I mean, obviously it requires a bit more whiskey and a bit more glassware, particularly if you've got 23 whiskies to get through. But
yes.
You know, that's part of the fun of it. And hopefully people might like to buy the bottle anyway, and that way they will have plenty more whiskey.
Sure.
Yeah, certainly with the addition of water, I get a lot more kind of herbaceousness, a bit more spiciness as well coming out of it, which is not unpleasant. Mm.
Lovely.
Mm. Yeah. I don't know. I liked it without water, but I also like it with water. I don't think I have a preference. I think they both work really well. I think actually the finish lasts a little bit longer with the addition of water, which is interesting, even though it was quite a long finish to begin with. But you get maybe some of that chewy Rioja characteristic coming through, which is very interesting. I mean,
I should say that this isn't a finish. The whiskey has been matured for the 7 years in the Rioja casks, which is, I guess, you know, and for a company like ours, that's the sort of thing that we can, you know, a parcel of 8 casks would be nothing for a distiller. It wouldn't really be worth them, you know. Okay, they would do it, but it wouldn't be a core expression for them. They might release it as a single cask and eke it out like that. So that's where someone like us comes in. We can find a more interesting parcel and bring it out to the market.
So, roughly speaking, how many bottles of this do you think you would?
There are 2,980, or there were.
Yeah. Or you can take 2 of those off straight away. Excellent. And so, is that the kind of size of batch you tend to stick with, Robert?
It hasn't. It's become a sort of size that we're working with. We started with bigger batches, and I've gone down to that sort of size. It's sort of an easier one to work with on the supply of bottles as much as anything else. But
maybe a bit more manageable.
Yeah.
I suppose it means you can have a greater turnover, so you've got more releases during the year as well. Maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Right. I think we should tell you a little bit more about what we're up to as well. Like, I mean, the other bottlings we've been working on, maybe.
Yes, yeah, that would be great if you can, you know, fill us in on any upcoming releases that we should be keeping an eye out for.
So the next release that we've got coming out will be a single cask, a successor. We've been bottling single casks with the Cairngorms Trust, which is effectively the charitable wing of the Cairngorms National Park. So we make a donation for each bottle we sell to this trust, which then puts some money into environmental and community projects in the Cairngorms National Park. So we've done 2 so far, which have sold through, if you like. There's still bottles available with retailers. I'm sold out. And so the next one will come out in the new year. So that will be our Cairngorms 3rd edition. So it will be a Speyside single malt, single cask from a distillery within the Cairngorms National Park, unnamed. So it's another quiz for people to work out what it is. And then after that, going forward, the next step is actually quite a big game changer for us as a company, in that, if you like, since 2014, the whiskies we've released have been bottled from casks we have purchased at the point of bottling, if you like. But simultaneously, over the last 6-7 years, we've been buying casks to mature. And so this first release we will do from that stock will be next year, and it will also be our first sherry cask release. So in that one bottling, it's 2 sort of big steps forward for us, if you like, moving forward a generation by releasing stock we've matured, and also our first sherry cask release, which we haven't done to date.
Fantastic. That sounds well worth looking out for.
Yeah, so that'll be next year.
Well, it's nearly next year already, isn't it?
Well, the single cask will be pretty quick. It's sort of missed Christmas, if you like. The Speyside will. Sorry, it's not Speyside. It's a sherry cask edition. Will be later in the year. Yeah.
And do you plan? Are you planning to get out on the road at all with those?
I will do. I mean, I have to say I've been doing not as much travel as I used to. I mean, but we're getting back out a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's been a challenging couple of years for everybody.
Yes.
We managed to get 3 festivals under our belt this year, which was really, well, vitally important for us, but it was really good to get out, and everyone was just very happy to get together and be able to dram together again and natter. So hopefully, notwithstanding the current situation, we can begin again next year.
I have my fingers crossed that we'll be allowed out.
yeah, exactly, and hopefully we can get you to 1 or 2 of them, Robert. Anyway,
sure, yeah.
What about distilling itself? Is that something that interests you? Is that something that maybe you see in your
very distant
future?
horizon? A very distant horizon. I mean, this is a very long-term game, setting up a whiskey business. So yeah, it'd be lovely to, but it's not an immediate horizon. You know,
it's a whole nother ball game, isn't it?
It is, yeah. A whole different league.
Exactly. And in terms of outside of whiskey, do you have a favorite tipple at all?
I guess, I mean, I mentioned that we also import. So we've been importing gin, and we've started importing rum this time last year. So I think you'll forgive me the plug, but I've been enjoying Siwatan Indigo rum, particularly at the moment. You don't normally think of it as a winter's drink, but it goes quite well with a hot chocolate. So that's been become quite partial to that.
Very nice, very nice. Well, me myself, I'm a bit of a, what should we say? No, I can't really say that. I like most alcoholic beverages, should we say, in one form or another.
Right.
Even gin, which, to be honest, over the years has been a bit of a nemesis. But I do love a Negroni and a gin and tonic when the weather suits.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, as far as spotting different gins and that kind of thing, I must admit I'm a complete heathen. And I don't really have a brand preference as far as gin goes. Do you have any? What's your gin?
The gin we import is Strand from Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we had a lot of fun with for a while they had at one point they brought out a gin which was 76%, and by chance it happened to be the world's strongest. Although we didn't realize that at first. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Well, until you started drinking it.
Then people brought out stronger ones, and then with that, it was sort of only finally confirmed that it was the world's strongest gin when someone brought out one that was stronger and claimed it was the world's strongest. So what do you do then? You have to bring out a stronger one to regain that.
I think that sounds like a very slippery slope to me.
It was, yeah.
Maybe not the best way to talk about alcoholic beverages. So in terms of, I mean, obviously, you worked for Glenfarclas for a long time before setting up your business. So you've obviously been around a fair bit, and you've seen what's been going on around the world with regards to the whiskey industry. Is there anything at all which excites you or even concerns you going forward with the whiskey industry?
I think more interests would be a better way of describing it. I mean, as I've mentioned, we're importing other spirits as well, and one of the spirits we import is Seven Seals from Switzerland. And that was started by a Swiss-German chemical engineer who looked at maturation. And in a nutshell, if you think about it, if you go way back to the 1800s, the primary purpose of the cask was for transportation and for storage. And a secondary function was, by chance, it happened to improve flavor. So he's looked, and so it was used, the cask became the way of, it evolved into being, its primary purpose is improving the flavor. So he's looked at it in the same way that, he's looked at it and sort of reassessed, if you were to design the process specifically for flavor enhancement as a chemical engineer, what would he do? So he's come up with his own patented secret process to accelerate maturation, and he's getting some pretty interesting results. Now, you wouldn't. The moral of that story is really that Scotch can't be complacent. It maybe needs to think about, to be a little bit more open to innovation, because he wouldn't be able to do that in Scotland. He's working with Swiss whiskies. He does start with 3-year-old whiskies, so the whiskey he releases in bottle is whiskey. I guess a simpler way of describing it is to say that he's taken finishing to the next level. So there is innovation out there, and it's, if you like, world whiskey is where it's increasingly happening because people aren't tied down quite so much. So I think we need to have our ears open to what's happening out there around the world, our eyes open.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, because I'm not sure how aware folks at home are in terms of the freedom with which world whiskey producers can go about their business.
Yes, yeah.
And I think from what you're saying, I would say that perhaps you would like to see that flexibility, or the slightly more open approach to be welcomed by the SWA and applied to Scotch whisky as well as world whiskies.
Maybe not as strong as that. It may be just that Scotch needs to be careful it's not being too complacent, and aware that others are out there and testing the boundaries, testing the preconceptions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very careful balance, isn't it? Because obviously people have their preconceptions and impressions of what Scotch whisky is, and if the rules were changed too much to allow for maybe too much experimentation and innovation, then Scotch whisky could then start to look and taste very, very different. So,
Exactly. I mean, it is a difficult balance, because the strength of Scotch whisky around the world is because of that quality that is determined by the strong regulation. So it is a delicate balance.
I mean, they have obviously introduced in the last couple of years some interesting new relaxation of regulations, but obviously nowhere near what world whiskies, as we call them, enjoy. So there obviously has been some recognition of that, but as you say, it's trying to maintain the integrity of Scotch whisky as a world-class, world-leading product without it being left behind and being seen as a bit of a dinosaur.
It's almost sort of horizon scanning, checking out what others are doing, and making sure we're not able to do that.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, the rise of world whiskies in general has just been so exciting for us and for everyone. And I think everyone that I speak to, Scottish or otherwise, welcomes it with open arms, and perhaps sees it as an opportunity. Because if you think about the likes of Kavalan and some of the Japanese whiskies, things like Milk and Honey as well, where unable to necessarily put an age statement on the bottle, which then creates an interest in those whiskies because they taste good, regardless of age statement or not. And I think that it kind of scotches the old myth that a whiskey without an age statement is intrinsically no good or inferior to a product that does have an age statement. So it has already opened up a really interesting debate and hopefully change people's preconceptions of particularly of age statements.
Yes, indeed.
That's not to say that that's an excuse to produce poor whiskey, though.
It's got to be good. It's got to, I think it's as the Seven Seals strapline is like, taste matters,
Yeah. Which is why, the events like this, other online events, but mainly physical events where you can actually go and taste through a really good range of whiskies from all over the place. There's really no substitute for that. Yes, you can go and buy a bottle in a specialist or a supermarket or whatever, but you're then stuck to that one bottle.
It's quite an investment, isn't it? You've
It
never
is.
tried it before,
Yes.
so that's the great thing of your events.
Yeah. Not to blow too much smoke up my own proverbial. Good. Okay. Well, listen, Robert, thank you so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed the Angel's Nectar, the Rioja Islay Cask edition. It's stunning, and like you say, I think because it's spent full maturation and it's not a finish, it definitely carries through a lot more of that. Well, both the wine character, but also obviously the differing character of the oak that would have been used rather than American oak. So yeah, a real treat. So thank you very much for that.
Not a problem, Eddie. Thank you very much for sharing our story, or letting me share our story with you.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I hope you'll come back. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you in person.
Sure.
I haven't seen you in person since Nottingham 2 years ago, I think. So yeah, it'd be nice to see you in person and share a dram.
Sure. Okay. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much, Robert, and I'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Slange.